who are yoga teachers or teacher trainees. Some of you maybe haven't seen this before, but possibly you have. Okay, Wendy, got that, thank you. So what I'm going to share something with you. So let's just get on with sharing and I'll show you what it is. Okay, that's what I want to share with you. No, it's not an anatomy class this morning, but I just want you to see the diaphragm. So this is our main muscle of respiration. I just wanted you to see where it attaches. So this here is corresponding with the bottom of the breastbone, and then this is the ribs here. So this sheet of muscle, you can see, I'm pointing on the screen, you can't see that. You can see how it's attaching to the inside of those ribs between the 7th and 12th rib. So it's a huge sheet of muscle and it comes down the back, and you can see here that it's attaching down into the lumbar vertebrae. So this is our main muscle of respiration. I just wanted you to see that shape of it there. So that domed shape that we get. And then what happens on inhalation is that dome flattens out, the rib cage expands and that dome flattens down, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing that now because you come to practice yoga, but it's kind of useful to just see that because we can relate it to our practice, okay? So we're going to come down onto our mat. We're going to feel into the movement of the diaphragm. And what I didn't show you on that is the intercostal muscles. So we've got muscles between the ribs, and these are also really important in respiration. And there's sort of 3 layers of those muscles. But I'm going to stop giving you an anatomy lesson because you haven't come for that. So let's lie down and have the experience of yoga. So come onto your mat, place your feet on the floor. Okay, and then I want you to place your hands so your hands can rest over those lower ribs and into the belly. Okay. And then I want you to just settle without really thinking about what you're doing here. So settling into your breath. We are going to bring some specific focus to the breath in a moment, but I want you to just find your place here on the floor. So feeling the contact you have with the floor. Feeling into the flow of the breath, and maybe you're already, because of that contact with your hands against your body, you're already starting to tune into some of that movement. So what we're going to do here is attune ourselves to that muscle. So, visualize it. And visualize doesn't necessarily mean create a pictorial image in your mind of this, but it means feel into that area, get a sense for it in that area. So we saw where it was attached to the inside of those lower ribs and to the bottom of the breastbone and down into the inside of the lower vertebrae. So we can get a sense of the surface area of that within the body. Often when we're relating to the body, and maybe you relate to the body better than I do, but if I bring myself in, I'll often bring myself in initially on a surface level. So, if I am to bring my attention into my arm, for instance, I'm kind of feeling the skin. I'm feeling what I can see. And then it takes a little while to drop beneath that, to drop deeper in, to drop down to the bony structure and to the deepest depths of the experience of the arm. And if we tune into the rib cage and the belly in this area where we have our hands, resting, then, initially we may feel that surface experience. But what I want us to do is to go into the diaphragm and go into feeling, the whole of that surface area. It's kind of like a little parachute almost, is one way I imagine it in the body. So you're attuning yourself into the whole of the area of the parachute. So into the back ribs, into the side ribs and front ribs, and then into the center, into the tissue of the diaphragm itself. Now, we're not necessarily going to feel sensation here because of how the nervous system is laid out, but we can get a sense of it. We can interocept the diaphragm by taking our attention there. So now we've got a feel for that dome shape, and that dome shape is how the diaphragm is positioned at the end of the exhalation. It moves up through the exhalation into that dome. And then when we inhale, it flattens out, it spreads out. So this is the opening of the ribs here. We feel on the inhalation. This is the little expansion of the belly we get as that flattening out and down of the diaphragm pushes into the abdominal cavity. So it's the separating medium between the abdominal cavity and the thoracic cavity. So on an inhalation, obviously, we are expanding the space of the thoracic cavity. It's pushing down into the abdominal cavity, and this is why we get a little bit of movement of the belly, because the organs get pushed into there, and then that creates a rise of the belly to give some space. And then as we exhale, and the abdominal cavity again sort of rises back up internally in the body with the diaphragm. The belly will sink because there's space there within. It doesn't have to push out. So as we breathe here, what I want you to do is to feel that you can attune yourself to the incoming breath pushing down, particularly through that central point of the diaphragm, as we saw it in that picture at the beginning of the class. You can feel that you are pushing down through that center and then spreading out towards the ribs, okay? Pushing down and spreading out. And as you exhale, then there is this rising up again from the center of the diaphragm. Now the ribs, or the intercostal muscles between the ribs that are contributing towards this process of respiration, without going into too much of an anatomy lesson. We have these three layers: the innermost internal intercostals, which assist with both inhalation and exhalation. The internal intercostals, which assist with exhalation, and the external intercostals, which assist with inhalation. So we've got various actions that are going on here through these muscles that are also primary muscles of respiration. That's why, when people are unfortunate enough to break a rib, it will affect their breathing. Or if ever you've had a bruised rib, then you've probably noticed that you may struggle with breathing. So we can feel the interplay of, this sort of mundane level, which isn't really mundane, it's fascinating when we go into it, but the mundane level of existence, in that, it's just the gross element of existence, the physical existence that we can easily observe. And we can feel the interplay between all of those elements, and what that does, if we get lost into the interplay of, what is occurring within the body without thinking about it, just being with it, feeling it. So there are these anatomical functions. It's all being support with, a lot of physiological functioning that's going on here as well, whilst we are the physiology of breathing itself, but also, we have our heart pumping blood around the body. The body may be digesting food. There's lots of processes that are going on. And what, how we can apply all of this to yoga is not by thinking about it, not even knowing, I've given you some information this morning, and maybe there's part of you that's like, oh, that's interesting, because we get attached to, intellectual ideas. But what will lead you to yoga through the experience of all of those processes is dropping into them without thought, without commentary, but just being with the flow. We don't have to know anything about anatomy to do that. But even anatomy can be used as a pointer into freedom, into yoga. Okay. Now we're going to release our hands from our ribs. Now, hopefully we've dropped into a really nice, easy, free-flowing breath. Maybe there is a little appreciation of our own body's functions here. All of these amazing things that are happening in our body that we don't have to think about to make happen. And we can apply this principle to our yoga practice. We don't have to add a thinking commentary to what we're doing here. We just step into the flow. So we're going to cross our arms now in front of the chest. So your hands may come to the floor, either side of your body. Your arms are above the chest, crossing over the upper arms if that your body proportions allow and the movement in your shoulders allow. For some of you, your hands may be off the floor and hovering. That's fine. They may come to the floor if you've got quite long arms and the movement in your shoulders. Don't worry about it either way. And we can make a mental note without actually making a mental note, so there can just be an observation of which arm is on top, because we're going to lift through the elbows above our head and raise our arms up out in a wide circle across the floor. And then as they come back up, we're going to cross them over, just bringing the opposite arm on top so they come back to where they started. Okay? So continue that movement, swapping the elbows over. The elbows extend up above the head, then the arms will open out from each other and you'll slide your arms down around the body across the floor, and then you'll cross your arms in front of the torso, working your arms back to that starting position so they're just above the chest, and then you can continue at your own pace into this flow, these wide circles, seeing if you can just naturally cross the arms over. And I find that they naturally want to alternate anyway. I don't really have to think about which arm was on top. And then just feel into the flow. So now once we've picked up a rhythm, we're able to sort of drop the commentary, we're able to drop the elements of us that is thinking about what we're doing. And this is always a fine balance, I find, as a yoga teacher, to be able to direct the class into, a particular action which requires me passing on an instruction, and an instruction requires an element of listening and comprehension. But to do that without moving into the limited experience of just thinking. You might think thinking is not limited. It's not limited per se, but it can be limited when we reduce our experiences down to thinking. What we want to do is move into the experience of total integration. So it's the mind, the body, the breath. And when we refer to the body, we refer to all aspects of the body, the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, the energetic body. And even each of those categories, we can go deeper in the physical body. We can go through all of those physiological processes. We can go through the process of moving. We can go through the process of the senses that feel and experience through the physical body. So, it's almost infinite when we start reducing it down. We ultimately reduce it down even to atomic levels, and then we reduce it down to the ultimate level, which is space. So whichever map of experience we might be following, whether it is an energetic map, a physical map, a psychological map, ultimately we can move it all down to the experience of space. Okay. When you're next extending your arms out, just to keep your arms, pause when your arms come out to around shoulder height, maybe slightly higher than the shoulders, and just rest there in the residue from that movement as we drop from movement to stillness. And then again, there is a dropping down beneath, a continual dropping down and moving through the body to that element of space. And when we really drop down into space, what we find is that, all of the experiences of being, they come together because they're all occurring within that same space. Nothing is separate from that. And this is our movement towards integration. This is our movement towards wholeness. Okay, now let's draw the left knee in towards the chest. Just take hold of the shin there lightly. So you can interlace your fingers, don't overly grip the fingers. And then allow that leg to draw in. And you might be perhaps drawing the leg in, releasing the leg a little, so you can almost feel a bounce through the hip flexors. So we'll experience this in the top of the front of the thigh and perhaps into the inner groin. It's almost like we can allow this movement of the thigh bone to bounce off from that area. So just feel into that, a little back and forth movement of the knee in towards the chest. Feeling that springboard, perhaps at the top of the thigh or the inner groin area, where we're getting A little bit more engagement through those muscles and release. It's a little bit like the play of the diaphragm through the breath. So we could feel the play of this movement of the muscles there. And you don't have to pinpoint them. You don't have to know anything about what you're looking for. If there's part of you that's thinking, I don't actually know where these muscles are, just move into the sensation that you're experiencing here. That's all you need to know. And that's your information. The information is the experience we're having. This is the key to yoga. It's not about what we can learn from a textbook or, what I can screen share with you at the beginning of the class. It's the feeling in here and now. And it's this information that leads to knowing. And it's the knowing. So the knowing of self that leads to freedom. Okay. Now we're going to extend that leg up to straight. We're going to take hold behind the thigh now. So again, lightly interlacing your fingers, so don't overly grip them. And then we'll move the leg. Perhaps we'll move the leg back and forth. And as you reach your leg away from you, you can feel that little pull of the shoulders. So there's a little stretch that comes into the neck, into the shoulders, into the upper back. So you can use your leg to create that stretch. And then as the leg draws in, obviously we're feeling into this stretch through the back of the leg, through the back of the thigh, through the hamstring. And again, you may be attuned to that little almost bounce off the top of the front of the thigh and the inner groin area as we move between a little contraction and release through those muscles. Okay, well done. Now let's bend that top knee and take the foot to the other knee. So the outer ankle, just above the bony prominence of the ankle, is going to rest just above the knee of the right leg. Okay. And then we're going to raise the right foot up off the floor. So this will draw both legs in towards us. And then we're going to play here. We're not going to go straight for the threading of the arms just yet. We're going to allow the hips to move perhaps a little from side to side. So we can reach into, again, there's this action into the hip flexors, and you may feel this stronger now into the inner groins. Perhaps you'll feel it more on the leg that we haven't been working through the right leg. But we're also feeling into, as we rock across the pelvis, this little stretch across the buttocks, across the gluteal muscles. And we can feel into the breath like we did at the beginning of the class with our hands there on the rib cage and the belly. Feel into that flow of support. So we've got all of these actions of movement in the body here. And what we want from those actions of movement, it's almost like the movement might be in a much less dramatic way. I can't believe I'm using this as a metaphor at the moment, like a cyclone. The movement of the surface, but at the center there is this stillness. So obviously we're not moving quite at the same sort of speeds or with the same drama as a cyclone, but what we're looking for is to sort of hone all this movement that's occurring through the body into that little drop of stillness that we find at the center. Okay, now Let's thread the left arm through the gap between the legs. Thread the right arm around the outside of the right leg. Now you may lift up your head, perhaps if you need to be able to take hold either of the right shin or behind the right thigh, wherever you comfortably reach, and then release your head down. And then again, there may be a little further movement through the body here. There may be a little gentle rocking from side to side, perhaps that, again, that movement helps you to pick up that inner stillness. Let your forehead soften and your jaw release completely. And then drop into a fairly or relatively still position. If you are holding your shin, I want you to move your hands to behind your thigh now, so you can free up the right leg. So we can then extend through the right leg. So raise your right leg up now. Now, you may want to play into a little movement here. I quite enjoy a circling of my ankle at this position. And, I say enjoy. There is an element of me enjoying it and being entertained by it, but, it's beyond the movement for entertainment. It's what helps me to attune to that raised leg. So as I circle my ankle here, I can feel that play of movement that comes up through the back of the calf, up through the front of the shin. I can feel this interplay again with the muscles moving between stretch and contraction. So feel into that, or contraction and release. And again, all of these, they're just, they are maps. We can have many forms of maps to guide us. If we took a literal map, for us to navigate ourselves from one place to another, that we would look at the map. But the map wouldn't really designate the real territory of that journey. The map is just a symbol of it, and it cannot replace the walk that you're on. It wouldn't give you the richness of the sounds you hear, the smells you smell, the sensations that come into the body, what you feel underfoot, what you see. It's very limited. So any map we use it to guide us, but it's the experience of the practice that is the yoga. So whether our map is anatomical, philosophical, or, just sort of systematic, in that we might have a particular system that we use, they are just maps. It's the experience that counts. Now, you may be able to walk your hands higher up your legs, so you can release your hands from behind your thigh, take them towards the calf. Sometimes I quite like to give my calf muscles a little bit of a massage here, a bit of a squeeze through the hands. And then you may allow the leg to, hands as they walk up the leg may move further over. You may still keep your hands behind your thigh if you're not reaching so easily up your leg. One or two of you may reach your hands towards your foot, but don't strive for that, because if you strive for that, you do put the body at risk sometimes. A good friend of mine who was at my class yesterday, she's been battling with a hamstring injury for years. And this can come from striving. I mean, hers is actually coming from doing quite a lot of running, has contributed to it as well. Not that I've got anything against running, it can be very beneficial, but she's just exacerbating an injury that she has. But these are the things that can come in if we strive. And ultimately, we're not looking for any kind of conforming to any ideal of what a yoga posture looks like. Because, what is the point of that? But we're looking for, on the level of yoga, integration. This is it. If we want to perhaps explore it on the level of the physical body, which some of us may be drawn to yoga for the physical benefits, we want functionality. We don't want injury. So there's no justification from whichever map we might be using to strive. Okay, let's bring our hands down the leg, bend your knee, place that foot to the floor, release your other leg now. Just calm down slowly. So there's probably a lot of sensation there. Maybe you can feel where we've been working now through the top of the front of the thigh and the inner thigh. So perhaps we'll just extend the legs out for a moment to give those hip flexor muscles some space to just ease off, relax. You may need to tuck the pelvis under, of course, so if you feel any tightness in the lower back, bend your knees, tuck, extend the pelvis forwards and re-extend your legs. Find your breath. In fact, let's take our hands back to the lower ribs and the belly as we did at the beginning of the class. And reattune to the breathing process. Okay, when you're ready, you may bend your knees and place your feet to the floor. I'm going to bring the right knee up towards our chest. And again, we're going to play perhaps with that little pulsing of the leg, a little back and forth. See if you can lose yourself in it. So by losing yourself, I mean just dropping any element of you that is, you, defined by you. So from my point of view, defined by being Kadeen, here, doing this, practicing yoga, creating a particular action. What I want to do is drop that element. So it's not Kadeen doing yoga, it's just the experience that's happening here, that's infusing me. So there's no story. I'm not even the teacher here in the class. I'm not even the person doing yoga. I'm just the person in the experience of now. And that's what I want you to drop into. You're not the person in the yoga class. You're not your backstory. You are just this pulsing of the leg, the flow of the breath, the sensations of the body. Perhaps, you may have the feel of a breeze on your skin or just the sensation of air against your skin. There may be background noises that are coming in. All of these are what defines you at the moment, everything that is feeding into this. But it's not your story. Not now. Okay, now let's extend that leg up and we'll interlace our fingers behind the back of the thigh and we're going to go through this movement of drawing the leg in closer towards us and moving it away. Total giving. Fantastic. You can feel that little pull through the shoulders again. A little, perhaps a sense of release in the neck. You may even pause in that moment if, there is any tension in the neck. It can feel quite good to feel into that pull. Okay. Now we're going to bend that knee, release the hands. I'm going to bring that leg to cross over the other leg. Perfect. And then we're going to play perhaps with a little swaying from side to side. So let's lift up the foot from the floor and then let's just sway the body, sway through the hips. Again, we can feel into that engagement that's there, into the inner groin area, the top of the front of the thighs. If you need to place your foot to the floor and just sway with the foot on the floor, if it becomes too strong for you through the belly, take a rest if you need to. Okay, now we're going to thread the right arm through the gap in the legs. The left arm around the outside of the left leg. You can lift your head up if you need to take hold, and then that's it. Take hold of the shin or take hold behind the thigh. So you might need more space for your knees perhaps, so you take hold of the back of the thigh. Breathe. You are still free to move. So again, it's like a very calm cyclone of gathering up that movement to drop into the inner stillness. And the inner stillness, it doesn't mean that it's void of sensation or experience. There's a vibrancy within that stillness. There is a total connection to being within that stillness. Okay, now we're going to, if you are holding your shin, hold behind the thigh so you can extend that leg up. And again, you are free to move here, and you may wish to play into that movement of the foot again. So it can feel really rich, just a simple rotation of the ankle. Notice, merge yourself with that. So, there's so much for us to discover, to learn about, what yoga has to teach us by, getting lost in a simple movement like the rotation of our own ankle. What is wonderful about this kind of movement that takes us into yoga is, it's pretty egoless. Doesn't require us to, achieve anything particularly special with the body. But it's rich, it's engaging. And it helps us to transcend the limited view of self. Okay, now you may be able to start to walk your hands up your leg. Okay, so feel free to do that, or keep your hands behind your thigh. So if your body's allowing you that little bit more space, you can walk your hands further up the leg. You might want to give your calf muscle a bit of a massage on the way. Any striving does not serve whatever your motivation is for yoga. It doesn't even serve that motivation to be able to get further in a yoga posture, because actually we get further in a yoga posture when we approach it from a state of relaxation. Striving tends to bring in holding and tension, and it locks in the body. So it doesn't even serve a desire to reach further in the posture. Okay, well done. Let's slowly release that leg down. Release your hands, bend the knee, place your foot to the floor. Release your other leg. And again, move it slowly, because maybe, some super rich sensations, a super rich experience here of the movement out of the posture. And you may take your feet a little further forwards, perhaps, to open out that front groin area, or extend your legs to the floor completely. And let's bring our hands back to our ribs, back to our belly, and feel into that flow. Forehead is soft, jaw is released. Notice the richness in sensation here now. We're not really doing anything. So I apologize if you came to get a really big stretch. We will stretch the body some more. But perhaps you can appreciate here that we don't necessarily need that. What we need is intimacy with our experience. What we need is a willingness to be with what is here and now. And that surpasses, anything that we can do on the physical level. That is limited to the physical level, I should say. Okay. Let's roll ourselves onto our side and face towards the screen, or position yourself so you can see the screen. So if you've got the short end of your mat towards the screen, just make sure you are rolling in a direction so I'm visible. And we're placing this bottom leg to a right angle. Okay. So the right angle is the right angle with the body here, and the right angle with the leg, and a right angle at the knee. Okay, so we're sort of making a square shape there between our legs. Okay, and I'm up on my forearm here, and pressing into the forearm, what we're going to do is we're going to play with this top leg, and we're going to reach that leg back, and we're going to allow the body to lean into this. So I've got my other hand here as support, so you can be on your flat on your palm or on your fingertips, and you can swing that top leg back and forth. As it swings back, you can allow the body to reach forward, so you can deliberately dip your body to the floor. And then in that dipping, we can extend the chest, and then we can get a nice deep stretch through the length of the leg and up into the torso there, and opening through the ribs. Okay, so play into that. And what we're also playing into here with the extension back of the leg is a stretch through those muscles that we've been engaging, through the front of the thigh, through the inner groin area. So, we are supporting the body. So, it's not being limited to, actions that are in one direction. We are exploring the range of movement. Now, I've given you this instruction of how to move here, but you are free to play into it. So maybe you might move your leg forward. You might want to go for a full stretch and extension of the leg in front of you. You may want to start arcing the leg around back behind you. So, feel into a little bit of playfulness here. And play is part, it's a strong element of what we do, this element of Leela. But again, it's play for it's discovery. It's not the sort of play of entertainment, but it's the play of creativity, a play of revealing. And what we are looking to reveal is, our relationship with the essence of being. Okay, now we're going to land this top leg. Before we land it, we're going to really reach into the foot though. So align your leg with the body again and reach into your foot. Now, as you reach into that foot, I want you to extend that top arm above you. So reach the arm and the leg away from each other, tone in the belly, lift in the chest, land your foot, and then extend that arm, deepening into your supporting arm. Keep reaching that arm forwards, and then we're going to bring the hand down. We're going to press into the hand, into both hands, and we're going to lift the body up and reach the body forwards, and then bring our elbows down beneath the shoulders or very slightly ahead of the shoulders. So we've got space to lengthen the chest in. Now, I find that it's useful to pick up my hip from the floor, pressing my forearms into the floor, and place my hip back down. So there is just room there to assist the turn. And then again, we might play into this here. We might want to move from side to side, feeling, you can feel as you move, if you are swaying from side to side a little, how this can reach into an opening of the ribs. And we know that this is useful in our assistance of breathing. And of course, all of this is supported by us maintaining that intimacy with our breath. Okay, now let's walk our hands in towards us a little. Pick up your back leg, and then I want you to swing that leg around so we come to Sukhasana. Okay, draw your buttock flesh out and back. Grab a block or folded blankets, towel or book, whatever you need to sit on if you need to. And then rest your hands there on your knees. Find a light lift. Now, some of you will need, if you are supporting underneath your seat, you might need a little bit of support for your shins as well. So do take that support. Sukhasana, as we all know, I know you all know, but I'm going to repeat it anyway, is a compact cross-legged posture. If you are positioned so you're facing towards the short end of your mat, your knees would be inside of your mat, not outside of your mat, okay? And then you've got a gap here. Your hands can rest on your knees or on your thighs, and then we can find a light rising up through the body. And as you find that light rising up, I want you to bring your attention again into the inner groin area where we've had quite a bit of focus today. And I want you to just feel that you can breathe space into that area. And allow that space to spread out towards the buttocks, to spread out to the pelvic floor, to spread out through the inner thighs, and into the lower back. Then allow this steady lift up through the body, this steady rising. So it's not a lift, although I did just describe it as a lift. It's a lifting. It's continuous. So don't look to move from A to B in one jump. look to feel into that journey. To relish and enjoy all aspects of the journey. Feel into any natural movement that's there. You are free to, wiggle up through the body. Sometimes, I sort of feel like a snaking kind of action, almost like I can wiggle my body up through. And, this imagery works very well for me in relationship to feeling into the central channel, because there's a little relationship with Kundalini there, this dormant energy that, a lot of yoga practice looks to arise up through the midline of the body, through the central energetic channel, and it's often represented as a snake. But you might find a little circling useful. You might find just the stillness of the pose useful. Our purpose is to move to this state of harmony. The harmony between reality, of what's happening here and now, and our experience of it. The harmony between the subject and object. Okay. We're going to ease out of this now. So what we're going to do is take our back leg is going to extend out. So you can loosen your legs so you've got space to move. Take a little lean over towards the side of your front leg, and then extend out that back leg. And then we should come to our position. You might need to shuffle yourself down on your mat so you've got space. And we'll come back down onto our forearm. And again, we're going to play into that movement that we played into before. So lifting up the leg, using your free arm, your top arm, placing your hand on the floor wherever it feels most supportive. And then we're going to play with extending that leg back, taking a little lean forward. So you're allowing the elbow to bend further on the supporting arm, and drawing the leg back and forth. So you can play into it. And again, this is our basic movement, so we can really feel into this extension up through the legs, so particularly through the inner groin and the front of the thigh, up into the waist. But then you might start to extend that play further. You may draw the leg forwards. You may arc the leg into the position. Feel, whatever draws you into, a greater connection with this experience here and now. And this is where it's at. And, it's really valuable. And it's a lesson that I have to remind myself of every day. And in part, because, I so love yoga philosophy that, I can get pulled into looking for the answer sometimes through texts, through books, through learning more yoga philosophy. But this is it. This is the philosophy in practice. It's the dropping in here and now. And I know, this is it. It's not going to stop me from my conditioned and conventional self from reaching into that philosophy, because what that philosophy can do is affirm what we are experiencing. So it's sort of it boosts us. But it's the experience that is most important. Okay, now we're going to bring that leg back into the center. Take the arm over and reach, and then turn the body. Extend into the foot, extend into the hand, land your foot. Bring your arm down onto the forearm, elbows beneath the shoulders. And then again, we may lift our hip up off the floor, replace it. It's a very, very slight adjustment that, makes all the difference to me. So it's, as I often talk about, it's the subtle alignment. The gross alignment is the basic shape. The subtle alignment is the alignment that allows your energy body to, come on board with the pose, that allows flow through the pose. So we don't feel that we are stuck, even though we place the body into positions that, conventionally may feel stuck, because we're sort of, we are almost tying ourselves in knots sometimes in yoga, but it's that subtle alignment that we bring in that, stops those, those knots from being tightened. It allows flow. And feel free to move the body here, to sway perhaps. Deepening your forearms into the floor to extend the chest forwards. Keep reaching back into your back foot so there's length through the torso. Okay, let's again bring ourselves up and out. So we'll start walking the hands up and then bring that back leg forwards, cross it over back into a Sukhasana. You might need, if your hips feel tight, feel free to give them a rub or, a little pat. I'm aware that, we've worked quite hard through those muscles in, a very subtle way. And then, use, all of the usual adjustments that we make, drawing the buttock flesh out and back to help the tilt of the pelvis to help us to sit more upright. Hands on your knees, rising up. And if there is strong sensation remaining, I can feel this in my outer hips, in my buttock area, that there is some sensation remaining there. Use it. Use that as your map to navigate into your center. Because that's ultimately always the destination. The center of the non-conditioned self. Okay. Again, any movement, you are free. Any movement that wants to come in, but perhaps you just want to be in stillness. Check in with yourself if you're moving out, if you do move, if it's out of habit or if it's a requirement of this moment. Okay, let's ease ourselves out of our Sukhasana. Give your legs a little stretch out in front of you. And we're going to bring ourselves onto our hands and knees. We're going to move through a downward facing dog. So the familiar, it's useful in that, we can, we know where we're going, so we don't have to think about it too much, which is useful. But, it can also drop us into a little element of complacency. So, what we want to tread is the line of being, fully immersed in it, not being led by any previous knowledge, although there will be a residue of information there that we can, of course, tap into to guide us into it, but without getting caught up in it being fixed. So there's a response to what we feel now. Okay, so your hands are shoulder width apart, we know that. Our feet are around hip width apart. Our wrists are further forwards than our shoulders. And then when we're ready, we're going to pick ourselves up. We're going to extend in. So you may perhaps keep your heels lifted initially, which will really help. It will help to free up the turn of your pelvis. Okay, so often I will play with Adho Mukha Svanasana with my heels lifted. I won't even descend my heels at all during the posture. But you may descend your heels, but let's not get caught up in an ideal of what downward facing dog is. Okay, let's remember the purpose of the yoga practice to move us to integration. So, you may be introducing movement here, of course. There may be a little sway of the hips, a bend of the knee, a lift of a leg. You are free to explore. Maybe you might explore the movement around your feet. So you might perhaps roll around, arc around the balls of the feet, perhaps. Pad the feet, but play into feeling your way through different parts of the feet. Play into feeling, your hands, deepening your hands into the floor. But again, it's a continual deepening. It's not just a simple press down to lift up. There is a relationship that is continuous. Okay. Breathe. Okay, well done. Let's come down to our hands and knees. Take a breath here before we move anywhere. Feel the release through your calves, through the back of the thighs. And then sit back on your heels in Vajrasana, an upright seated posture. Maybe popping something between your buttocks and heels, resting your hands there in your lap. And breathing. Let your shoulders release. Let your elbows settle. And your wrists and fingers. Okay, we're going to bring ourselves down and we're going to come down onto our belly, but we're going to cross our arms like we did at the beginning of the class, but we're going to do this on our belly. So you come down and you thread your arms through, your palms will be facing up. Now, you may need some support for your head. So if your head is not comfortable, I find that my chin comes to rest on my arm and that supports me. But if you feel unsupported, just pop a block or something there. Your feet can be around hip width apart. And then just breathe into that stretch across the shoulders. Feel into any movement. Maybe you want to wiggle across the hips. This may loosen up the belly, give you a bit more space there. It may loosen up the lower back. And just breathe. So we get a really lovely stretch across the shoulders here. So, the shoulders become our map. We navigate our way into the center through the sensation of our shoulders. And we do this by bringing our attention fully into them. Okay, raising your head up now. We're going to change the cross of the arms. So just slowly, steadily release your arms out. Maybe you need to pause, and you can pause with your elbows on the floor for a moment. Let the shoulders settle. And then when you're ready, you can feed your arms in front of the body, crossing in front so they are resting above the chest. So you've got the opposite cross of the arms. And then again, you're just pausing there, you're just giving yourself there. Breathing. Okay. And then raising your head up and slowly sliding your arms out. You can just bring yourselves up in your own time onto your elbows. Stay with the shoulders for a moment because there's probably some sensation that's remaining. Your elbows are beneath your shoulders, your palms to the floor. Lift and extend your legs back one by one. If you need some padding under the pubis, you can take it. We're not going to move any deeper than we are here now. But you can deepen your forearms into the floor and raise your chest up. There's an extension of the chest forwards and up. Breathing. Extend back into the toes like you are trying to point your toes back towards the space behind you. This will bring a little more engagement into the lower back, but don't transfer that engagement into the buttocks. So see if you can not add extra engagement to the buttocks because it's not required. Okay, well done. Slowly fold yourselves down. You may rest one hand on top of the other. And just rest your head there on your hands. Breathe space into the lower back. Okay, and when you feel ready, you're going to push yourselves up from here. So you're going to place your hands to the floor beneath the shoulders, push into the hands and push yourselves up. We're going to lay ourselves down for a little bit of pranayama. So Wendy, I know you need to leave early, so you could just come into Shavasana now for the last couple of minutes of your session. And I'm going to take everyone else into some pranayama. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of support with a blanket. So we're going to open the chest with a rolled up blanket. Now, we often lay over a blanket roll. It's not going to be as thick as that. So what you can do, what we would normally do is open it out and roll it. And if we were in a yoga class, we'd probably get another person to help us, but we haven't got that option. So what we're going to do is we're going to go for a semi-roll. This is the sort of most efficient way to do this. So what we can do is have a blanket that's folded so, you know, it's easy for us to work with, and then we'll roll it up a little. And then what I've done here is I've created a little thinner blanket roll there, and then I'm going to pop it on my mat. So it's, you know, we've got a little tail of the blanket there. So this is just for efficiency. So those of you who are familiar with doing this and you can roll out a blanket roll, you can do it. If you've got a bolster, you could use that to come on. So if you're familiar with pranayama lifts, or even if you've got a pranayama cushion, know that definitely one person in the class has, you're welcome to use that. So I'm going to show you, Frances has got her pranayama cushion. If you like pranayama, I do recommend getting one. They look like a draft excluder, but they're really good. So I'm just going to show you the principle of what we're trying to do is we're just going to place the body so the chest is open and the head is supported, and we've got this slight Jalandhara Bandha, so this slight inclination of the chin towards the chest. So I've placed my blanket like this for efficiency. I'm popping my blanket so it's touching, the bottom tips of my shoulder blades are just brushing the edge of the blanket roll there, and it's just below the shoulder blades. It's basically in line with my breastbone, and then when I lay myself on it, I get this nice openness of the chest. So you can see my chest is open, the rib cage there is nice and open. We've got this space for breathing. Now my arms, I'm going to just pop them underneath the blanket there. So my palms are up towards the ceiling. My head is supported. Now you can see, this is what I want you to make sure you've got with your lift, that you've got your forehead higher than your chin, that you've got this slight inclination of the chin towards the throat. And what this does is it opens up the back of the throat. So it helps with breathing, but it also prevents, because we're working directly with prana, with life force, with energy, it prevents that prana from being overly concentrated in the head, okay? So that's important. Okay, so that's your position. Your legs can be extended. You can have your feet on the floor. We're not going to be here for too long, or you can even have a bolster behind your legs. So you're looking for an open, spacious chest, shoulders released to the floor, head support, so your forehead is a little higher than your chin. Okay. No, I would come. I can't really see you all here, so I'm trusting that you've got those things locked. Chest is open and spacious, you know, not being pushed open so it feels tense. You should feel nice and relaxed in the back of the body too. Shoulders are descending towards the floor, so make sure any lift that you've got behind your back is not pushing the shoulders up. That's why I tucked my arms underneath that lift. And the head support is encouraging that natural Jalandhara Bandha. Okay, now pranayama, the extension of prana, of life force. We know that our primary source is well, we could say the primary source is the sun, actually. It is one of our sources of prana that we get, and we can feel that, can't we, in the sun, that it can energize us. We could say it is the primary source, as the source for all life too. But in our body, we have this relationship with breath, which of course, without breath, we don't exist. It's obvious that this is a primary source for us of life force. So prana is the energetic quality or the medium of energy that we work with in yoga through the body when we're attuning into those internal flows. This is prana. So these practices, and all you need to be doing now is breathing here. These practices of pranayama look to, stimulate that flow. So they can be very energizing, but we stimulate the flow in a way that is balanced. This is in part why we take the time to be fussy about the way we place the body when we come into these practices. So with your eyes closed, attuning to your breath. And again, we've got many maps of the breath that we could use. We could feel into the anatomy of the breath, as we did at the beginning of the class, the movement of the diaphragm, the action of the intercostal muscles. Perhaps the map might be the physiology of the breath, this exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide that happens through the breath. This support of all cells of the body through that exchange. Maybe our map might be the energetic relationship, the pranic relationship. So we can feel as the breath moves in and out of the body, that it's not just confined to the anatomical level of the movement of the breath into the lungs, but we can feel the sparkles of energy moving all the way through. So just following your inhalation and exhalation with ease. This is the most basic practice, but actually, again, in the same way that Tadasana is one of the most basic of postures, it can be the richest. Because it doesn't require us to get caught up in any idea of technique. We're just simply breathing with awareness. Puraka, inhalation, rechaka, exhalation. Kumbhaka, retention. So the kumbhaka element is the element of exchange from inhalation to exhalation and exhalation to inhalation. Sometimes there may be a spontaneous suspension of the breath. This is a Kevala kumbhaka. So we can notice these three qualities, or these three aspects of the breath. The inhalation, the exhalation, and perhaps the natural suspension. We're not doing anything to manipulate any of those stages. Although there are practices where we manipulate those stages, but not today. We're just simply feeling into the natural flow. Trusting in that natural flow. So you may now just take a slower, more extended inhalation and exhalation. Really feeling into that. And then when you've taken that, I'd like you to bend your knees and place your feet to the floor. And then you may gently roll yourselves over to lay on your right side. And then you're going to just gently bring yourselves up from there when you're ready. So take your time. Try not to disturb yourself. You're going to lay yourselves back down for Shavasana. And I just want you to be able to remove your lift that you have beneath your chest. I want you to keep a lift beneath your head and then lay yourself down. You might perhaps pop a lift under your knees. That can be quite nice, I find, after pranayama. My body seems to like a Shavasana with knee support. So when you're ready, you're laying back down for Shavasana. So you know how to lay yourselves down, making sure you've got space in your armpits, your shoulders are released. You feel space in the lower back, so you may need to lift and extend the pelvis forwards. You may even need to keep your feet on the floor. Or you extend your legs out, your feet are around hip width apart. Your chin, again, just slightly inclined towards the chest, so we're keeping the lift behind the head for our Shavasana. It's important after a pranayama practice to keep the mind cool, to keep the brain cool. And then just drop fully in. Drop fully in. Giving yourself to the flow of this moment. And that's a continuum. It's always this moment. This moment requires nothing of you. So release any trying. Truly surrender yourself here now. Take another of those extended, spacious breaths. And then gently bend your knees and place your feet to the floor. And then when you're ready, roll yourselves over to lay on your right side and pause there. And then again, when you're ready, you may roll yourselves over onto your other side and pause there.
And then slowly begin your ascent out of your posture, maybe just slowly opening your eyes to allow the light to filter in. A little movement to the toes, to the fingers, a stretch out of a limb, a deeper breath, whatever it is you need to support your ascent. And then come up when you're ready and come to a comfortable seated posture. And we'll close the class together as we usually do by bringing your hands to your heart, closing your eyes. And we'll chant Om 3 times together. So let's take a deep inhalation to prepare. Thank you all very much. Namo Vaha Namaste. Reverence to you all. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. It's lovely as always to see you all.